Hello and welcome. This is a bit of a false entry. First of all, I want to thank Kev for joining me this evening for today's episode of Invalid Entry. First of all, I want to apologise. I'm learning how to do this, Kev's learning how to do this, and I may have messed up the audio levels slightly, so I know I'm going to be very loud. When am I not very loud? Kev is a little bit quieter, so please bear with it. I do apologise. I've tried to do the auto levelling to try and level it out. Please give it a go. Anyway, now into the actual episode. Alright. Hello and welcome to another entry of Invalid Entry. I'm James Taylor, and with me I've got Kev with me.
Hello.
Because I'm not at all desperate for content on day 10, but I'm desperate for content day 10. We were just discussing, by the way, this was never meant to be a pie game advent calendar, even though I've said pie game advent calendar like 3 days in a row. It was originally supposed to be, the first one was supposed to be making the advent calendar in pie game, which it is here, and then we're supposed to be doing other things and not just programming but maybe a bit of astronomy, because we've got a really cool astronomical event coming up soon, which you may or may not know about. Jupiter and Saturn are going to be aligned.
Yeah, I didn't see that. Yeah, it's going to be really close.
Really close. But we live in Norfolk, so we'll probably see clouds.
More likely.
Yeah, so don't get hopes up too much for that day. It's going to be incredibly boring to us. Anyway,
less light pollution, being rural, but we've got more clouds. So
yeah,
it's
a perfect combination. So actually, Kev, I want to give a yell out to the work you do and a couple of the other guys in Norfolk. We have a Norwich Python group.
Yeah.
And you started, one of the things that inspired me to this, you started a coding, a Norfolk Python Christmas pie game. Well, you did get me into pie game.
Pie game every day in the advent calendar.
It is your fault. It's addictive.
It's good. It's one of those things where you kind of think like, oh, can it do that? And then you're like, oh, yes, it can. And it's like, this is a great toolbox. When
Tom and me were making Anti-Escape for the first time, having a little person run across the screen at 60 frames a second, it's like, oh, that works. That's like, I was completely blown away by how easy it was and how fast it worked as well.
It was nice for me though, because I had a break from programming, because I got a job programming recently, but my programming days back to the Amiga and ZX Spectrum, so I was using things like Amos, which was a graphical game sort of basic language, and Blitz. So I wanted something that was similar to that. And I was using a Raspberry Pi, and it's like Python kind of made sense. And I was like, what can I use that's graphical, that's quite quick and easy to make games with? And Python. I think actually the Raspberry Pi, it comes installed by default, doesn't it? I think it did on one of the earlier Raspberry and
maybe.
You didn't have to make a virtual layer, but it was part of.
So I think one of the free games was a Pi game, which is why it was pre-installed. That's why. I mean, these are Raspberry Pis.
The actual displays are.
I've got 2 Pis. So yeah, I run Pi game on both.
Oh, so it's 2 Pis, not 1 Pi forward dual display.
Okay, so I've got cheap screens. Okay, and if you change the resolution, they do change resolution, but what they do is they just sort of leave you a massive black border. Like you get like a 2-inch border, and you can't get rid of it. There's absolutely no setting. They're cheap they're cheap imports, right?
Yeah, which you can't.
So basically, I have to run them at this ridiculously high resolution, and now 1 Pi will run both at that high resolution. But if you put 2 really high resolution screens, they haven't got a graphics card. Okay, so it just really can't do it, and you can't get any FPS, and you get loads of side effects. So it was just cheap to buy 2 Pis, and what actually happens is I have them monitoring each other. So, and this is way off topic at this point, but I basically have one checking the other one's running, and the other one checks the first one's running, and if either of them stop, they send me a message. They ring me and they go, "Yeah, your system's broken." Because there's some stuff I haven't done in Invalid Entry, which I've been prepping for, because this is running my home automation.
With the Pis as well.
Yeah, so they're running the HAS and the temperature sensors and my yeah. So there's upcoming stuff about that, but yeah.
An HD camera have security on there as well. The new HD module.
There is a security camera here that is watching me. So I've actually done that, and you may, if you look carefully in a couple of the older videos from just before this, you might notice I've got a big screen shed layout, and you actually see a picture of me in the picture. It actually downloads the security footage and puts it on the screen. Anyway, so yeah, big fan of Raspberry Pis. They're nice, they're cheap. The new ones are ridiculously fast for someone my age who can remember,
Yeah, I was using Pygame on the Raspberry Pi 1 for what I wanted to do, which was sort of 8-bit classic gaming sort of stuff. It was a great entry back into coding again. It was enjoyable. And then I had to learn JavaScript.
There's 2 things banned on this channel. I'm just going to say that right now. There's 2 things banned on this channel. JavaScript and the other language beginning with a P, which is so banned we're not even going to mention
it. I had to learn that one as well, but I'm not going to mention it. But yeah, I had fun with Pygame.
Anyway, so you have written something that isn't Pygame. As the Pygame expert, you are the Pygame.
I challenged myself to CURSES. It's a C++, isn't it? Usually it's a wrapper. And I thought I'd give myself a challenge. I'll make a Christmas decoration. I set everyone in the Pi group, like, let's do some fun Christmas challenge. We're doing Christmas social this year. So the couple of challenges I set were to make a Christmas decoration or make something that makes random jokes. I think most people are going for the Christmas decoration idea. And I thought, I'll go with CURSES. And it was a little bit trickier than I thought. But the Python library makes it really easy, actually, the wrapper. Because originally I wasn't using the wrapper. So there's this main function here, where all of the logic kind of lies, gets called by the CURSES wrapper, and that does the starting and the finishing. Because without it, you'll find your terminal kind of breaks. I think you'll need that for it to kind of escape properly.
So CURSES. Tell us, for people who don't know what CURSES are, what do you know about CURSES?
I don't know much about the origin of it, but it's basically, if you want to do anything in the terminal, if you ever use anything terminal like a GUI, a classic one is like the what's the Linux boot?
Grub. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you use Grub, something like you've got all the Windows, the original Windows install used to have like a terminal-based graphic interface, and you want to be able to put graphics in different places and place them very similar to Pygame. You can't really do that in the terminal because it's line by line, so you have to use this CURSES library, and you can treat the terminal like a screen. I think they even call them pads as well. You can set different windows and then place characters and inputs within it. So it gives you a bit more control over the terminal window.
So I knew I had just looked it up, and I knew it was old. Like, it's 1980s, if not 1970s. Old. And that actually has when you say it's hard to use, it actually reflects that, because the more modern programming GUI interfaces have gone, well, that was difficult, we'll make it easier. If it was easy, there wouldn't be new ones. It's that simple. Yeah. It's cursor optimization, and it is as you say, it's a console type thing, a terminal type thing. It was developed mainly for people who couldn't use X. X Windows is incredibly old, actually. For those who don't realize, X Windows dates back to the 70s. So it's for people who were using Telnet in the time, logging on, doing menus. Rogue was built in it.
The classic, yeah, there's a terminal.
Yeah. So Rogue was fully built using CURSES, and really, like you say, it does things like it detects when the window resizes, your console resizes, so that you don't have to do all the calculations. So instead of you calculating where everything is, it will do those kind of things for you. So I want, like you say, I want a manual here or there. People will see it on installers a lot. Like you say, can you ask the user a question or get them to put some input and validate it? There's a lot of that going on. It's big in Bash world because I think it's quite easy to interact with. But I haven't used it much, actually. As a user, I've used it a fair amount. Like, you spot it. I think by default it has like a blue background. So I think that because I think most things use it seem to have a blue background on it.
Well, interesting when you get into it, you actually have to ask to use colour.
Oh, do you?
Before you can use colour. Yeah, you have to define colours.
Interesting.
Colour pairs. So that's something, because you might have a terminal that has different default colours. So the Python gives you a function to use the default and to override them as well.
Okay.
Because this is the issue I got in my colour. I'm going to make it standard. I obviously want it to be red. If the number for red on another terminal is purple, I'm going to have with a purple standard.
Right.
So,
right.
CURSES sort of takes that into consideration.
So yeah, go on and show us. Show us your.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, you've written it in Python. You've written a Python script.
Python, yeah, using the CURSES. So the first thing I've done is I've import CURSES, which is a core library, and because I need to do some animation, I've import time, just gives a bit of weight as well. And the next thing I did is I can't really go on there at the moment, but there's some really great ASCII art graphics you can find online. I'm not good with ASCII art. I mean, there are some. I've seen some libraries where you put an image in, it'll output ASCII for you. But I found it. I found a Santa, and I'll show you down here. Here's what it is. The Santa I've got. But I've split him into three because I want him in different colours. So these are the white parts of the Santa I wanted, and I just imported as a raw string because some of these would be normal escapes. So when I just tried to use a multi-line string, it was breaking. It was like, oh yeah, because that
you got a backslash. Yeah.
Yeah. Be careful. ASCII art might have escape characters in it, which might break your code. So just put the R in front of the triple quotes there. So you have multi-line raw strings. So I've got Santa white. So these are the white characters here. Red when his arm is down. Red when his arm is up. So I wanted to print these to the screen. But if I need to print the characters on top of each other, I need to take it and I'm going to treat the characters as if they're pixels. So I'm going to treat it like Pygame. When I draw like a tile map, I'll do an X, Y, and then I'll look at each tile and print them separately. So I tried to create a function that did that. So I'll go over to the actual main loop now. And CURSES out of the box isn't perfect. There's things you have to do to get this right. The actual cursor will still be on the screen unless you set it to false. So Python gives you this nice function here within CURSES. So you can draw the drawing, it'll do the drawing like Python, but you'll have this cursor going around, which kind of reminds me of a sort of an 80s war game style TV film where the cursor used to draw around the screen. And also, nice function here as well to clear the screen, because obviously if you're halfway down and you're typing on your command line, you want to start fresh. So I've turned the cursor off and I cleared the screen. And I was saying earlier, you wanted to use the colour. I'll actually tell you on the doctrine here. You have to initialize it. So you've got CURSES start colour, which is a function here. And I also told it to use default colours, because if not, my colour 1, which I found out is red, might be purple on somebody else's system. The next thing to do for the colour is you've got to initialize these colour pairs. And I found this on a code, and I'm not too sure exactly why this has to be done, but some of the colour examples have all used this. So there is a number of colours which CURSES gives to you. So you can do range 0 to CURSES colour, and it initializes through that range. And once you've done that, you're all set to print in different colours. So I made a function.
How weird.
Sorry?
How weird.
It is weird. I know. What? Without it,
but you're passing in.
You don't get the colour pairs.
You're passing in. What are colour pairs? Sorry, that's
this when you add a letter to the screen.
Yeah.
So this function here. So.
Oh, is it a foreground background?
Sorry.
Is it a foreground background pair?
Yeah, foreground background pair.
Oh right, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. FGBG, yeah.
Because you're not actually referencing a pixel, you're representing a square of pixels which has a character in, so it'll always have some foreground, some background in that cell, right?
I'm guessing so, yeah.
Yeah.
But depending on the pair you choose, so one might be red with black, and then when you get to 100, it might be black, black foreground, red background.
Yeah, yeah.
But I just found that they're just numbered, and the code I found just printed them all out, all the numbers, so it was like a colour palette, and I just used that as a reference. I should have ran that actually. That would have been quite a good example.
Right, yeah.
I just picked that and went, oh yeah, one's red, 0 is white.
That works.
Well, actually, 2 is brown. So or things like that. I just found colours I wanted using. If you cycle through all these colour pairs and print them out to the screen, you can find out what they are. That was the old way still on the Amiga, because you never knew what colours you were going to get.
Sure.
What colour is palette 4? Oh, that's green. Just do it. Just iterate through all the colours and find out what they look like. What I should point out here is CURSES has got functions you can call from CURSES, but to do stuff to the actual screen, this wrapper here, main, takes as a standard screen, which you can call it whatever you want. You don't have to call it that, but it seems to be very common. You can just call this screen. Very similar to, or surface, very similar to the Pi game. So this object here I can call clear on, and the main one we need to print. This is very similar to what I used to like on the Spectrum. You used to be able to print at and then put an X and a Y and your string. So you could move a character around the screen. If you cleared the screen, you could move them around. If you didn't clear the screen, you kind of draw around the screen.
Mm.
But we can.
I mean, that's how we used to write Snake. When back in Basic, it would be.
Yeah,
you remember the coordinates. You take
the screen. You're just drawing on top of where they've been already.
That's the Tron one, isn't it? So to make it Snake, you just take away the last one and put a new one on the head, and take one from the base and put it on the head. In total, you had like an array of locations, and then and you remember which way you're going. Just add one or whatever. Yeah, that was the old days, the good days of programming.
The problem with Spectrum is you didn't have double buffering, so these horrible flash between clearing the screen.
Yeah.
Which we don't get on here, which is because it's obviously very quick. Might have been something in the 70s with CURSES if they were doing something like this. It was a very quick refresh rate, as it was constantly clearing the screen each time.
Yeah, I'd have to ask someone who was using computers in the 70s.
I don't know why it is with CURSES, but they put Y and X the wrong way around.
So, I do know why that is.
You do? I thought you might.
Going back further to terminals, not terminals of Windows, but terminals. When you write an operating system, like you do at the weekend, when you run an operating system, the graphics card doesn't work like a modern graphics card. You haven't got pixels. You've got locations of characters. You actually write characters to the screen. The graphics card has the font embedded in it, sort of, right? You don't have an XY coordinate, actually. You just have a number of characters.
Oh, I remember doing something like that, yeah.
So to go to an XY coordinate, what you actually want to know is the number of lines first, and you multiply that by the width. Then you add on the characters across. So if you want to go 5 lines down and it's 80 wide, it's 5 times 80 plus your horizontal. And that's, I think, why it's that way round, because it's that era where you go, take the first value first, multiply it, then take the second value, add it on.
Is it the same with LCD displays, I think? 16, it's 2 row of 8, but you don't have X and Y, you just have 1 to 16, so you know that 9 is going to be the first and the second row.
I think it's actually technically true of even modern screen, but you do it at a pixel level rather than at a character level.
So everything is counted from that point onwards, going across.
And I believe it's true for Pi game screens as well. And one of the things I did on my transitions was, if you actually access the surface as an array, you can do things like, say, every other pixel. But if you do that and if you've got an even number of pixels, which you generally do on a display, have an even number of pixels, you get stripes. But if you access like every 4th or 7th pixel, something which doesn't divide naturally, you'll get weird diagonals because it goes off the edge and it doesn't count on the next line correct. It doesn't start at 0 on every line. It will just go by 6 further on. So you can do weird transitions by just changing how many by Python links. And it's super fast in Pygame accessing the screen buffer like that as well. So yeah, most things are just a long array which you wrap, or the thing wraps for you into a coordinate system.
So this is why it prefers to have the Y first.
I believe that's why. Yeah.
So
and I think
you're talking about old television scanning. The Y would be,
you would count.
Scan,
you count across and then down. Yeah. You have to multiply up, and you do it that way for stack-based languages, which Python is, where you want to pop it off, multiply by your width, then pop the next one off and add that on, and it just makes more sense as a. Remember, this was written for C programmers, and C programmers aren't human. They are more robot than human. Yeah.
It's close to assembly, but
yeah.
I get it. But it was confusing for me because I kept having breaking, because I was actually getting it the wrong way around, and then I looked at the docs.
It'd be like mirrored at.
I was putting my Y wide, and it was breaking the range basically.
Yeah.
When I realised it was YYX. But so this function, I pass down here my character string, my raw string, and then the colour pair that I want. So I know that 2 is the red, with the black background. So
Magic numbers.
Right, now I need to go through each line. So I've split it by...
Caveat, just a very quick caveat. Of course, we're doing this for fun. This isn't how we program on our normal day-by-day basis. We wouldn't just leave magic numbers lying around without comments. Right? Just so everyone's clear, don't judge us for what we do in our home lives. So 2 is red, 0 is white, yeah.
0 is red. That was what I've worked out. Yeah.
Is that actually the colour red, or is it actually the reference of the colour pair, which is red on black? Or
I just found out it was a red that's matched in that palette when I read all for the colours.
Sure.
And I'm just doing 1 for 100. I just want to loop this animation 100 times. So that is just an arbitrary number. But here I needed to get the current Y to be able to put it into the Y. So I'm using numerate. So I'm splitting the line. So I'm getting the line from the characters, and the Y position. And I was finding it was then bugging if it had no line. So I'm then checking to see are there actually any characters in that line. So is it greater than 0? And then next, I'm turning that line into a list. So splitting up each individual character into a list. And then enumerating through that. So that's not here my X. So I'm going down the Y and I'm going X. So basically I'm splitting my characters, like I say, into these X and Y coordinates. And then I was finding if it was blank, it was then pasting over a character that I want to say. So I'm now doing another check saying if it's not blank, print to the screen, Y to X, the letter, the current letter, which is the current shape from B to all screens. And then it's a function again, CURSES, the colour pair, and then the colour from this function. Other things you can, there's a tribute at the end actually. You could have it so you can have it so it's blinking. If you put in here, which I use for a snowflake effect on another one, CURSES, you've got all of these other attributes. You've got like bold, which I normally think escape characters if you're printing it in a terminal. You've got special escape characters like you've got italic as well. So like blink or blink a character, you don't even have to animate it or blink on the terminal. But this was using the colour pair option.
So when you showed us the animation that it got flashing on and off, you actually didn't do anything. You just said make it blink.
Yeah, with the make it blink. blink one again. But that was the snowflakes because I know they're going to be sort of blinking.
Yeah.
And I find it's very similar to Pygame where you've got flip. You need to refresh the screen before you see any changes.
And I like that. I think that's super powerful because if you've got any kind of calculation where you're changing 2 or 3 things at the same time, you want them actually to apply at the same time, even if it took you, especially on older computers when this was invented for, you might still be calculating one of the fields or one of the things you're updating. So with Pygame, it's nice. You're not seeing it render little bits and pieces every frame. You get the entire frame as once. Otherwise, you'd get, if you think about it, if you didn't have that control, you'd get really weird side effects.
Like the flashing back on the...
Like you'd have the background appear, then the foreground, then the foreground.
Yeah, because it was so slow. It would be calculating it, and then it would clear it, and then you'd have this horrible flashy effect.
Yeah.
Which I think even on the Amiga that used to be, I think they did bring in double buffering, which kind of got rid of that. See, also, I could put this refresh at the end of here, because after it's all done, I don't know at the character level, but I don't know if it makes much difference with the performance though. So we're going through this loop, we draw the character putting his arm up, and then we put the white on top, so we've got like the red underlay, and then we're pasting the white on top, so we're getting the 2 colours. And because we're doing it line by line, we're not drawing on top of it, wiping any other characters out. Then we wait for a bit, and then we can clear the screen again, and then we draw it down. So we're just doing this loop. The getch here, I think that was from that basically is wait for a key input.
Mm-hmm.
So if it does get to the end, it waits for the go. But because of this wrapper, I can use Control and C to escape this, and it won't break the terminal. With using it raw, it would just break. So if I get my terminal up now, and this is down here, I just run Python. Enter, apply.
I'm about to take a screenshot of this.
Yeah,
Got screenshots in. It's nice.
It's animated.
I
Yeah,
love it.
it's very. I like it. I like the fact that it's a little colour as well. It's just,
It's
it's
bright.
out
Yeah, I think if you didn't have the colour, like I think the colour helps identify what it is a bit faster, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think the beard being so big as well, otherwise it's a big empty space. But the white outline, I love it. I absolutely love it.
Oh, well, just how it turned out. I mean, I did have to work out. I just did the opposite of the army. I mean, the from ASCII art, I got the hands down. Is for well, I can just flip it.
Right, and I think
and then just use it.
a lot of simple games are about having your assets pre-rendered, or pre-calculating where things are. And yeah, it means that if you try making the screen super small, it's going to go horribly wrong. But actually, it works. You save a lot of time and effort rather than having to do all the calculation on the fly. Just saying that's where that's where the arm is. It just makes everything easier. And you think about some computer games like Resident Evil. Some of them, even quite recent Resident Evils, had pre-rendered backgrounds.
Just make it faster.
Yeah, on the GameCube and things, the background were beautiful, and it's like you're running around inside it, and it's actually a pre-rendered. It's not rendering the entire thing on the fly. Why not, sort of thing, you know? So I like it.
Yeah, well, by the time if you were that close to the background, you wouldn't realise it's rendered.
Yeah,
It's just
I love it.
Well, I did another one. I did a snowman, and that uses the blink. And I also added another colour. Oh, we found 4, which is brown. So with this one, the character doesn't move. But I made this. This is one I gave up on. So I ran out of time. So originally I was going to make a sort of random 2D list of snow, and then move the snow down. But then I kind of thought, as it blinks, it doesn't really matter if it's random, because it's not you're not going to see the snow moving downwards anyway. I mean,
I'm actually
slowly moving snow.
I'm actually going to do one on snow falling this weekend. It's a bit longer for me to work out. I'm going to do a snow smalling in Pygame, and it's to get it looking realistic is an interesting one. If you're on ASCII, it's just going to, but
It's
yeah,
going to go down. But does it go down?
no, it has to drift.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's really interesting.
At this resolution, when it's like characters, you're not going to see much movement.
But you,
finer,
yeah, and what's really interesting, looking at some people's optimizations, whether you're just tiling a snow that drifts and everything drifts the same size, it's easier and it has the effect. And people are like, oh, I know what's going on here. It's snowing. But to actually do it realistically, where every single snowdrop is moving at the same time, you suddenly go, that's an interesting amount of data to process every frame. That's whatever frames a second. So it's interesting what optimizations you can cheat with and still get a really cool output.
I suppose if you get it once, it'll trick the eye.
That's the thing. I think when you actually see people on games, what it actually is, it's like they calculate a tile and they have that, but it's repeated. So the whole lot goes. So you may calculate 5 or 6 snow things, and then just tile those over the thing. And also having 2 layers as well gets you that. If you have like a background layer, which is just a slightly different phase to the front ground layer, and then tile those 2 separately.
Is that what they used to do, like war effects on like old 8-bit games? Yeah.
Yeah. So you just work out a tile and then have another tile which is just a different size, so that it doesn't repeat correctly. And then that tricks you into thinking it's not a repeating pattern because it's 2 repeating patterns overlaying. So it takes a lot more combination before the repeat actually kicks in, sort of thing. Sort of tricks like that, sort of optical illusion tricks. But it speeds up your calculations,
Something like Sonic with the waterfall or something like that.
Yeah.
But with the snowman, he's a bit more in bits. I had to. The insert key came in handy because I managed to remove parts of him without, disturbing the order.
So
here he is. The white is just the main snowman I got.
If you're going to do ASCII art,
I'm going to paste on top his hat and his scarf, and then his arms are going to be brown because they're a tree. It's a twig.
Yeah, if you're going to do ASCII art, there's often an editor mode called block mode, which is I don't know if it. I used to have an editor which had it. And you can literally go between blocks, and it's like insert mode, but it doesn't worry about if you haven't put enough spaces. It just works out. Oh, I've got to add all these spaces. So look for a block mode editor. Yeah.
Like an ASCII sprite editor.
Basically, Basically.
I did think when making this thing, I could do with that. I can make that. I'm sure it already exists. So I'm drawing him, but each time I'm running this thing called Make Snow, and it takes the number of flakes I want.
Mm-hmm.
and it just iterates from the number of flicks, and then randomly blits to the screen star. I thought that's a snowflake in it, but it uses this blink, so it's not. I'm using the cursor's blink to do the animation for me.
Right, and that blinks faster than once a second because you're going to refresh the whole thing every second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wrong with snowman on there. There we go.
It's wonderful.
But it does look like it's moving down, even though it's random. Because originally I was going to have it so it was a random long 2D list, like when I've done Pygame random tile maps, and then move that down. But I thought,
there's a lot of hassle. It's a lot because you have to work on when it gets to the bottom and put them back at the top.
It kind of works when it's just random.
It's nice. It's nice.
Yeah, it's very wintry. I like it.
I do. I think you've done a fantastic job. I really do. I think it's really. It's one of those things where you go away and then like 6 months later you're like, oh, I need to make a little console thing to prompt a user for something. Goes, I know how to do this now. Like it's the thing. It's like I know how to do this.
You've got to learn curses. I think there was a bit of a curses. Oh yeah, that's a tricky one. But I thought, well, I might as well do something fun with it.
I think when
I'm actually tempted now. You said about games like Rogue. I might see if I can make a game with it.
I'm just going to hit pause a moment on my recording. All right, well, that was the end of today. And well done to everybody who makes it this far through the video. Congratulations. And we've got 20 seconds now to talk about the videos that are appearing over our faces. They should click this video that's over my face.
And this one. No.
It will be like between our hands, about here. Yeah. Like
videos.
Like this one. Yeah.
Like and subscribe.
See, you're a pro at this. All right, well, thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.